Yo, what is going on, you guys? We're back with another Assassin's Creed Shadows build video. This time, we're doing a full bleed build, baby. The previous build that I was working on and I posted was basically two videos, iterations of the same build, which was critical and bleed damage. But we're ditching all the critical damage and we're leaning fully into the bleed. And I gotta say, it's really satisfying, you guys. It's might be my favorite build so far that I've come up with. And let's take a look. Actually, just let's dive into it real quick. We have the Tanto that I've actually been using for the longest time. This was probably the best Tanto that I found early on in the game because it came with this 25% damage from bleed on afflicted enemies. And that was pretty huge for me, you know, on my search for the perfect bleed build. Then we put on that afflicted enemies are vulnerable legendary engraving from the Yukimitsu's Revenge Tanto. And basically the only thing that could be improved here would be to get a epic Tanto that has better stats. Like this one has bleed, but the engraving that it comes with is not as good as the one we're using right now. But this one is like a 360 DPS difference, so that's pretty huge. And there's still room for improvement here, but I think the gear items and the engravings are pretty much set. You guys are going to see the way that this works is it's a thing of beauty. So the katana that we're using is the same one that we had from the previous build. It's unchanged. We're still doing 25% damage from bleed on afflicted enemies and then 24% damage when hitting vulnerable enemies. And I didn't get into too much detail last time as to what we're doing to get enemies in the vulnerable state. Of course, this one is kind of a given. We just do a bunch of burst damage and then it just stun locks enemies in the bleed and then the vulnerable damage. But this guy, we have abilities and passives on the katana that allow us to proc the vulnerable state on enemies and do big damage, of course. Then we have the headpiece, which is 25% damage from bleed on afflicted enemies and 20% damage with afflictions. And this is an engraving that I found actually later within the last couple of days. And so, you know, when I find something new, it just gets my mind going and I keep coming up with new ideas. And then I got super lucky yesterday when I found this armor set, which if you remember my previous video, I incorporated the no master stroke costume because it does a tool bleed buildup. So that allows for your tools to actually do tool bleed buildup. And, you know, there's engravings and such that I was trying to get that to happen. But when I came across this, when I paid attention, actually, because I already had it, I saw that this was a perfect, you know, it was perfect synergy with the rest of the build for the bleed damage and buildup. And so I got lucky because I found this basically the same outfit, but just like the epic version. And it came with the plus 1% affliction buildup on consecutive hits. Now, this one is pretty much as good as it gets because of our trinket. That way we can free up a legendary slot to get a bit of a bonus in damage. And then we put on the same spread affliction buildup on afflicted enemy kill from the no master stroke costume, which is, I mean, the bill is just begging to please be put together. And then this one is kind of crazy, honestly. So we have the Oni's Fury, which gives us 15% damage per non-legendary gear equipped. Now, I've heard that the horse also counts. So if the horse counts, we're getting a plus 75% damage boost to all of our DPS. But if it doesn't, it's still 60%, which is massive. And then we have this, which is an item that I found early on in the game when I was level 16. And it's the Masakado's Vengeance, which gives you plus 1% damage per unspent mastery point. It caps at 200%. Now, if you look at the trinkets, they don't really give you any like high DPS options for the engraving that they come with. The best you're going to get is stuff like armor piercing, you know, but actual DPS, actual damage numbers like the ones we're able to attain with this. Because here's the next thing that I was going to show you guys. So I went and unassigned a bunch of points, and look at that. The number on the top right corner is 132. So we're getting 132 plus damage on this trinket. And depending on whether or not we get 60 or 75%, that's almost a 200% damage increase, which is insane. And then the way that the bleed builds, you know, with all the stacking that we're doing with our tools, with the consecutive hits, with the afflicted enemies are vulnerable, and then we spread that as well. When an enemy dies from bleed, it's pretty nuts, guys. So let's go over the skills really quick. So as on my previous video, which I do encourage you guys to watch, especially the longer one, because it has a bunch of in-depth info about all the research and testing that I was doing. We have all the global bonuses from every skill tree. So take a look at those. For the katana, we're using the highest tier of the dodge attack, which upon dodge, if you do an R1 attack, it'll put the enemy in a vulnerable state. And then this guy, I could actually not even use it and then it would give me a little bit more damage. But honestly, the damage is already great where it is. So optionally, I could get rid of this and get some points, maybe like 10, 20 points from this. But this is the tidal wave. I just like the way that it looks. More important is the counter attack, because at the highest tier, it unlocks the ability to parry or deflect red attacks or unblockables, which is huge. And it also puts enemies in a vulnerable state, so we can do a weak point attack for massive damage. And then from the, I went ahead and unassigned a bunch of points that I had on the Kusarigama, and then we're just keeping those globals. For, you know, everything that we have is consecutive hits or some sort of melee boost or critical chance and all that stuff. And then from the Tanto, we're using, this is our bread and butter, the leap strike and escape strike, which I recommend you to unlock first as soon as you can, so you can get into the habit of using this to weave in and out of combat. And it's just really snappy and really satisfying once you get the rhythm of the combat with this. And it does some crazy burst damage. I'm going to show you guys. It'll do like I do like a 2-hit sometimes with this, because the way that it pierces through enemies' armor, and it's just, you'll see it. I'll show it to you guys. But the next thing that we use is the Shadow Piercer. This we mainly use to engage annoying enemies, like the ones that call the Rain of Arrows, you know, that they usually just block every attack, and they're super annoying to engage with, because I mean, it's kind of cheap, honestly, the fact that they always just block every attack. So that way we just neutralize those threats and we move on. Then we have Endless Barrage. This I don't use unless I want to get out of a pinch, because it's kind of broken. But yeah, definitely recommend that. From the tools, everything is unlocked for build up and damage boosts. And I do have the kunai assassination damage, and then all the shuriken all the way up. And the shuriken, actually, I use a lot because they ricochet, so it's pretty good for crowd control and to kind of spread that affliction as well and keep the pressure on. Then we have on the shinobi. This is amazing. So lightning kicks, definitely want to unlock that, because the ground, once you knock an enemy down, the ground attack does massive damage. And this one I just like. It's not really relevant. But the assassin tree, we have all the adrenaline chunks unlocked. And as well, I'm not going to keep saying it, but all the passives on the left, you can see what they are. And the assassination damage, because it's the highest form of damage. And I do like to play assassin, although the showcase is for basically when you have to engage with melee, which is, I really enjoy doing that, just going out in the open and feeling like a badass, just taking bunch of enemies down at the same time. It's pretty satisfying. So that is the build. I'm going to show you guys a bit of a showcase that I did clearing out a castle, and that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas of anything that I could improve. But as always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.
ばよかったものを。牛の穴を打たん。